The morning sun cast a golden glow over the federal courthouse, but inside, a storm brewed. Judge Marshall Davis, known for his iron grip and open disdain for certain figures, was in a particularly foul mood. His voice echoed through the hall as he berated his clerk for a minor oversight, his temper as sharp as ever. Those who knew him well sensed that today would be different. Something was about to break. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as people filed in, whispering among themselves. Today's proceedings featured a high-profile witness, Vice President JD Vance, a name that carried weight in conservative circles. The air was thick with anticipation, but Davis sat at his bench, drumming his fingers impatiently, his face already flush with irritation. His reputation for hostility toward conservative figures was well known. The court clerk approached with measured caution. "Your Honor, Vice President Vance has arrived." Davis's face twisted into a sneer. "Isn't that special?" he muttered. "Make sure he understands this isn't Washington. His title means nothing here." His disdain was evident, but Vance entered the courtroom with calm composure, acknowledging the court staff with respectful nods. He was here for truth, not theatrics. "Let's get something straight," Davis said, his voice dripping with contempt. "I don't care who you are. In my courtroom, I am the law. Is that clear, Mr. Vance?" The vice president's calm demeanor remained unshaken. "Crystal clear, Your Honor. I'm simply here to provide testimony." That only seemed to enrage Davis further. "Truth," he scoffed. "We'll see about that." As the defense attorney began his opening statement, Davis cut in almost immediately. "For the record," he interrupted, "I am already tired of the political theatrics." He shot a glare at Vance. "This is not a campaign rally." Every time the attorney tried to explain his client's community work, Davis dismissed it. "Irrelevant. Move on," he barked, his gavel slamming down repeatedly. Vance's turn to testify arrived, and the hostility increased. "Stand up straight when you take the oath," Davis snapped. Vance's posture was already impeccable, but the judge's venom knew no bounds. "And speak clearly," he added. "I won't tolerate political doublespeak." The courtroom felt like a pressure cooker, ready to explode at any moment. "I can attest to Mr. Sterling's financial transparency regarding his charitable foundation," Vance said. "Oh, here we go," Davis scoffed, rolling his eyes. "Another conservative fairy tale about family values." The gallery shifted uncomfortably. Even the prosecution seemed uneasy. Davis's bias was glaring, but he was too blinded by his own vendetta to care. "Let me be clear," Davis continued, leaning forward. "I've seen enough rich conservatives hiding money behind fake charities." He glared at Vance. "Your presence here doesn't impress me. In fact, it makes me question the defendant's character even more." But despite his bluster, something in Vance's steady gaze made Davis squirm. Vance remained composed. "I have here documented evidence of Sterling's charitable contributions, including the March Foundation meetings." Davis's reaction was instant. "Those records are inadmissible," he practically shouted, though no one had objected. His outburst was oddly personal, almost panicked. The shift in his demeanor did not go unnoticed. "On what grounds, Your Honor?" the defense attorney asked. Davis slammed his gavel. "Don't you dare question my rulings. One more word, and you'll join your client in contempt." The prosecutor shifted uncomfortably. This was no longer just judicial discretion, it was a personal vendetta unfolding before their eyes. "Your Honor," Vance said evenly, "these documents were submitted properly during discovery." "Oh, were they?" Davis sneered. "I suppose your fancy White House connections had nothing to do with that." His hands trembled as he shuffled his papers. His eyes kept darting to a specific folder on his bench, one that had appeared that very morning. "Perhaps we should discuss the March 15th meeting," Vance said. Davis froze. The rage drained from his face, replaced with something else, fear. His hand hovered over his gavel. "Those meetings are not relevant," he said, his voice suddenly uncertain. His eyes flicked to that folder again. "Not relevant?" Vance asked. "That's interesting, considering they directly involve charitable contributions." "Enough," Davis shouted, slamming both hands on his desk. "One more word, and I'll have you removed." But his panic was evident. The court officers exchanged uneasy glances. Davis's composure crumbled further. "In fact," he sputtered, "I'm holding you in contempt right now. You're nothing but a Trump lackey." Vance, unshaken, responded, "My position has nothing to do with this. But since you mentioned protection, perhaps we should discuss the Liberty Foundation's payments." The color drained from Davis's face. "How dare you? I mean, what payments?" "There were no." He stopped himself too late. "Actually," Vance continued, I have records of offshore deposits that align with your rulings against conservative defendants. Davis's outburst shocked even his own staff. You planted those, he shrieked. This is a setup, a conservative conspiracy to. He stopped abruptly, but the damage was done. The courtroom was silent. The implications of his words hung in the air like a bomb ready to detonate. A conspiracy, Vance said softly. Interesting choice of words, Your Honor. Especially considering your meetings with certain activist groups. I will not be interrogated in my own court. Davis roared. His hands shook as he shuffled his papers. You think you can come in here and expose corruption? Vance asked. Like in the Thompson case, where a small business owner lost everything because you refused to allow exonerating evidence. Davis let out a hysterical laugh. He deserved it. They all do. These people hide behind family values while. He stopped himself again. The gallery erupted in stunned whispers. Davis had said too much. Vance pulled out another document. Or perhaps we should discuss the Wilson hearing, where you sealed records just hours after meeting with Liberty Foundation representatives. Davis twitched violently. How do you? He caught himself. Supposed to be what? Vance pressed. Destroyed, like the Liberty Foundation records. Enough. Davis roared, his face contorted in fury. You self-righteous conservatives think you can. Think we can expose the truth. Vance finished. Your rulings were never about justice. They were about power. And now, that power is slipping. Davis lunged forward. Guards, arrest this man. Seize those documents. But no one moved. Actually, Vance continued, holding up another document, your signature is on these authorization forms. The officers hesitated. They knew what this meant. A new voice cut through the silence. This court is now under federal investigation. The room turned to see FBI agents entering. Judge Davis, stay where you are. Davis's panic exploded. You can't do this. I have immunity. Connections. Do you know who I am? The lead agent nodded. Oh, we know exactly who you are. Davis's eyes darted around desperately. This is a setup, a conservative plot to. The only plot here, Vance said, was your abuse of power. The agents moved in. Davis thrashed. I am the law. I am the law. But his authority had crumbled. He was just another corrupt figure exposed. You think this changes anything? Davis spat as they cuffed him. There will always be more like me. You're right, Vance said. But there will also always be people who stand against them. The investigations that followed uncovered an entire network of corrupt judges. Davis was just the beginning. His chambers were sealed. His rulings were overturned. His name became synonymous with judicial corruption. But justice had prevailed, and those who stood for truth would always have the final say.